My brain needs a rest after the last couple of days. Now we know for sure that there was storage in the bow of the boat. All right, so now at this point, I am pretty sure that the Triton was there all day. They didn't switch out the boats. And I'm also pretty certain at this point that this is a real video, because there's one single frame where you can see Bart's boat and you can also see the toes of somebody like dangling them off the water. So if the picture or video were AI, it would be a really bizarre thing for it to just kind of throw in. But there's zero question in my mind that this video has been altered. So then the question becomes, why would they alter this video? And the only thing that logically makes sense to me is to alter the identity of the two girls. Because if Carter is the boy in red, Wyatt is the boy in the American shorts, Bart's brother Brooke being the one in the navy blue shorts, and then Ike being the one in the teal shorts. Then we've got Warren up here with somebody in this red striped swimsuit and the girl in the teal swimsuit with the backwards hat. So in this picture, this would be Brooks, this would be Ike, this would be Wyatt, this would be Warren, which would leave this to be Carter. Now, whoever this is seems to be very cuddly with Carter. Like, too cuddly, in my opinion, for it to be like a mother or a family member. Thinking about it a lot from the timeline that we have been told, and what we haven't really been factoring in again is the party. Because remember, Warren said he went to the party, but instead of talking with all of his friends, he went upstairs to go talk with his girlfriend's dad. Now, those families are tight. So if that dad of Ava, if that conversation with the dad didn't happen, then they would automatically know that they were lying. So I've been saying for a while that the girl was somehow involved. And mind you, everybody's back on land now. They're getting ready to do the fireworks, and everybody's swimming and drinking still, blah, blah, blah. So what's the excuse for no pictures at that party? They've explained it all away during the day, but at this point, they're all just being teenagers and having fun again, right? So I'm thinking that the brunette girl is Ava, the girl whose house they went to. And she's pretty close with Warren and the Pyrone family.
And they're full speed running. And then after that, I didn't see them anymore. I think you were on the boat. You start from there?
Yeah, so after we planed off, Wyatt kept the boat pinned the whole way in. We ran into the mouth of Fort Bayou, where we came from originally. And we turned into Fort Bayou, went in the channel, ran probably 500, 600 yards into Fort Bayou. Wyatt had jumped out of the boat, put the plug back in the boat so access water. So water didn't keep pushing and filling back the boat.
According to their own words, they went into the mouth and then they turned and they went about 500-600 feet. Now, mind you, the party house is right around, but they go past it and then loop back around. However, Warren just admitted that at some point they had to stop and Wyatt jumped in. And even then, you heard him stuttering over the story. Like, it wasn't a smooth transition, because I think they dropped her off. Which would explain why they would go back to this party, because obviously they can't cancel the party. That looks really suspicious. Then, my theory has always been that the guys all, like, broke off and, like, talked to the parents about what was going on, and that's when they formulated their whole, we'll call her and then we'll call the Coast Guard plan. Remember, she is related, somehow I can't figure out, but she is related through marriage to the lieutenant that wrote up the very initial report we've seen. Because remember how Morgan claimed that the picture of the boat stuff was circulating around Snapchat and stuff, even though Christine didn't post it to her Facebook page until the next day. Listen to this.
His mom was, what was he wearing? And so we were trying to remember what color his shorts were. We couldn't quite figure that out.
I said black.
Yeah, I think we said black.
I really did. He was wearing navy blue shorts?
Yeah, it was like dark blue shorts.
Dark. I just said black because I was trying to piece everything together and help out.
And so at this point, we're freaking out. We don't know where our friend's at. And the girl that took the picture, she was like, okay, well, I just took this picture of today. This is what color swim trunks he was wearing. And his mom asked for that to post on Facebook to say, if you've seen him, whatever, this is what he was wearing.
So remember, the girl who took the picture with the digital camera was on Wyatt's boat at the beginning of the day and then was there with them at night when they were having this discussion. So she had to have been there at the beginning and at the party at the very least. Then we remembered that the original shorts picture, well, that wasn't the color of his shorts, as we now know. So we also know for a fact that this picture did not get sent to Christine until July 5th, meaning that they had to have had that picture and then not sent it to her for hours. Because they also said this.
And so that's what we sent to her, or that's what she sent to her, because we were just trying.
So they corrected themselves. He said, we sent it. No, she sent it. On July 5th, Christine said that they have been up for almost 48 hours straight, and then the very next post above it are the same pictures but better quality. Why did it take so long to get these pictures to them? Oh, and y'all, now that I said that, I realize, so all of these pictures had to come from the same digital camera, right? Meaning this picture did as well. And since I've already proven that this picture had used AI to do something weird because, you know, there was no little bar here, only explanation for using AI on just this little part would be to obscure the reflection that was in this poll of the person who was taking the video. Or the pictures. Oh my God, yes. That makes sense. Love it when I figure that stuff out in real time for you on camera. So it makes sense to me that this photo video thing was altered to cover up this girl's swimsuit. Because let's face it, this swimsuit is the ugliest thing. It has like supposedly like sleeves and it's a tankini, but it goes like in a weird cut, but it's ugly. It's ugly and it's clearly not what these debutante beauty queen girls are wearing to a 4th of July beach party. So I'm like 70% sure that this is Ava. Oh wait, oh my God. Wait a second. Shown y'all guys before that there's 4 boats out here in this little cluster, right? But I'm looking at these weird pink lumps and stuff at the front of the boat, Bart's boat here. Is that a pile of life vests? Because I'm realizing there's not 20, 30 people on all of these boats. Like, I'm seeing 10, 12 people here tops. Let's not forget what a full house looks like on these boats. Because even in this video at the meetup place, there's not 20, 30 people getting ready to get on these boats. I mean, the boat left at 9:56, according to the GPS. We got like 7, 8 people here, like 6 people here. And also, if they were legitimately needing to be towed and they were trying to get the water to run off, why are they all spread out on the boat? Why are they on the boat in general? Why didn't they just get off on land or get on another boat? Trying to get the boat to tip up and go planing, why do you have over half the boat on the front of the boat? These are experienced fucking fishermen. They know better than that. Yeah, I can't believe I've never thought of that before. If the boat was sinking, why are they even on the fucking boat? Yeah, and if it was so common and so easy to get, you know, rides back with other people, you know, strangers on Horn Island, why did they need to load everybody on the boat? Why were they yelling at Nolan to get on the boat? They didn't need to get him on the boat. And now that I'm looking at this, doesn't it look like Warren is on the phone? Could this have been when he was calling his mom 8 times? Also, one more thing that stuck out to me.
We called law enforcement. I was with Wyatt at the time after we left Jackson's house that night. I was with Wyatt and one person we were with saw that their location was headed towards Wyatt's house. And so Wyatt got on the phone with 911 and was like, hey, these people are on the way to my house or already at my house. My mom and my dad are there alone and they know nothing about this.
He stumbled over his words from beginning to end in that story, so I don't believe any of it. But the one thing that sticks out to me was the phrasing, they don't know anything about this. If people are heading over to your house, why wouldn't you call your mom and dad before you called 911? Because it sounded like he was trying to keep his parents out of the loop of this story, which as a teenage boy implies that you have something to hide. Just a lot of different things to think about, right? Oh, these little liars. I told y'all that Jax was the ringleader. I told y'all. He sat in this interview and he was telling stories about shit that he wasn't even there to witness. So let's break down some of the stuff that I heard in this interview. Let's start with Warren's first phone call because y'all will remember that Warren said that he was over at Ava's house for that 4th of July party when they all started realizing that Nolan was missing, and he called Miss Christine at 11 o'clock.
One of the first things I told Miss Christine Wells in the first phone call that ever occurred with anything to do with Nolan Wells being gone, because I was the first person to call Miss Christine about anything. First phone call, anything to do with Nolan Wells was me making a phone call to Christine Wells. And one of the first things I said to her, with multiple witnesses here, pull up the phone call if you want. She said, oh, well, Nolan's location is with y'all at, you know, where the house we were at. And I was like, well, no, he left his phone with us. I told her this.
And yesterday, the same time that this interview came out, Christine Wells said this.
360 says that he's on land, and he was like, well, no, I mean, you know, when we have his phone.
So both versions of the story say that Warren didn't tell her about the phone until after she confronted him with the 360. Now, Warren tells Miss Christine that he knows somebody in the Coast Guard and that he's going to call them, which is very fucking different than calling the Coast Guard, which absolutely explains why the Coast Guard came out and said at first that they had not received a call from the kids that night. The Coast Guard's initial statement said they weren't informed until 12:30. Then the Coast Guard later changed their story and said, oh wait, actually we did. And it seems to me that that first call was most likely an off-the-record to a friend kind of deal, which means these people freaked out and didn't call the Coast Guard until after all these people showed up at Jax's house. Which would explain why in the course of this interview it went from Warren called the Coast Guard to we did. Now when the subject turns to how the family got the phone back from these boys, you'll notice that there was a couple slip-ups.
Warren, you weren't at the house, and so you weren't there when they came to get the phone and all that. So
now remember, Warren just said that he wasn't at the house when the phone was got. And then Morgan talks about getting a phone call from one of the people in Christine Wells' group.
And how did they get the phone back?
So I got a call from a kid we went to high school with. He called me just asking me questions. He saw people posting on Snapchat, like the picture that was circulating.
Except this picture wasn't posted until July 5th. So how could this picture have been circulating on Snapchat that night? But let's continue.
And he called and he was asking questions. He was like, where's Nolan? When's the last time y'all seen him? And then he was like, so where are y'all at? And I told him, I said, we're at Jax's house. And then Warren got on the phone, and I don't know.
So they come to my house, right? And they kind of
hold on before we get there. Was it confrontational or was it just just trying to find? It was confrontational.
Yeah,
already?
wouldn't y'all agree?
Yeah,
he was 110%.
He was very
confrontational.
And when did was this on the night of the 4th or the next day?
This was the night when this was before they came and got the phone.
So this is the night of the 4th, yes.
You guys are missing a part of the story. How did you get from Ava's house to Jax's house? Because Miss Christine is watching you guys on the Life 360. So suddenly she's seeing the phone leave one location and go to another. Of course I would be upset. And now all of a sudden Warren is there when the phone stuff starts happening? He's listening to the phone call? Now I need y'all to remember that Warren also said that the phone was in his truck on the first conversation, as we have from this report. Meaning if we were to believe Warren that he was not there when everybody showed up looking for the phone at some time in between 11 and 1 a.m., so then that would mean after they heard this angry phone call, Warren gets the phone out of his vehicle and puts it in Jax's house and then leaves.
A TikTok user says they have uncovered a darker piece of evidence in the Nolan Wells case. But before we accept anything circulating on TikTok as a breakthrough, there is one question we have to ask first. What does the evidence actually show? Because this case has already been flooded with videos, theories, altered audio, fake documents, and claims that were later shown to be unreliable. And tonight, there is something important separating a real development from an internet theory. Nolan Wells was 18 years old when he went to Horn Island, Mississippi, with friends to celebrate the 4th of July. He never made it home. His body was found 2 days later near the island. And more than a month later, investigators still have not publicly established exactly how Nolan died. That is the part of this case that matters most. Not the rumors, not the comments, not somebody's theory about what they think happened. The cause and manner of death remain unresolved. An independent autopsy commissioned by Nolan's family reached an undetermined conclusion, while the official state autopsy has not been publicly released. So when a TikTok account claims to have uncovered something darker, we need to slow down and examine the claim against what is already documented. And there is one piece of the timeline that makes that examination especially important. It is the gap between the last confirmed sighting of Nolan and the moment the boat carrying his friends left Horn Island. Around 3 p.m. on July 4th, Nolan was seen alive on the island. At 4:31 p.m., GPS records show the boat his friends had arrived on leaving Horn Island. Nolan was not on that boat. That leaves roughly 90 minutes that investigators still have to account for. The existence of that gap is documented in the case material. What happened inside it is not. And that is where this story becomes difficult, because there are different accounts of what Nolan intended to do. One account from his friend Warren Hudson says Nolan was asked about leaving and chose to remain on the island, telling the group he would get another ride back. But Katie McCormack, the young woman Nolan had been speaking with, has given a different piece of information through accounts relayed by her family and later directly to Nolan's mother. According to Christine Wansley, Katie said Nolan told her he intended to return to his friends. But Katie did not actually see Nolan get onto the boat. That distinction matters. She was describing what Nolan told her he planned to do. She was not claiming she watched him board the boat. Her sister had previously described essentially the same understanding. Katie assumed Nolan was returning to his own group because she believed his friends would not leave without him. So we have two different pieces of the story. One says Nolan deliberately stayed behind. The other says Nolan intended to return. And neither account, by itself, answers the most important question. What happened after Nolan and Katie separated? That is the missing section of the timeline. Now, this is where social media has taken the case in a very different direction. Videos have circulated claiming that photographs, boat movements, social media activity, and audio recordings reveal what happened on Horn Island. Some of those claims have attracted enormous attention. But attention is not verification. One of the most important examples involves a video that spread online and was interpreted by some viewers as showing Nolan involved in an altercation. A person identified as Tristan Shepard later said publicly that the voice in the video was his, not Nolan's, and that Nolan was outside the frame. Publicly available case material also does not establish that the video proves Nolan was involved in the alleged confrontation. That is why the new TikTok claim needs to be treated differently. If somebody has genuinely uncovered new evidence, there should be something we can test. Is there an original photograph? Is there a verified timestamp? Is there metadata? Is there a police report? Is there GPS information? Is there an original recording rather than a copy that has been edited and reposted? Those questions may sound technical, but in this case, they are everything. We have already seen what happens when a piece of internet evidence gets treated as fact before anyone verifies it. A disputed audio recording from the emergency call has been enhanced and interpreted in several different ways. Some people believe they hear specific words and names in the background, but those interpretations have not been established as forensic fact. And there is a very important reason for caution. Simply making background audio louder does not necessarily make the words clearer. It can also amplify wind, water, mechanical noise, and overlapping sounds. That means a viewer hearing a particular phrase does not automatically mean the recording proves that phrase was actually spoken. The same rule applies to photographs. A photograph can be useful, but if the timestamp cannot be independently verified, it becomes a lead rather than conclusive evidence. That distinction has already become central to this investigation. A crowdsourced timeline assembled from photographs and videos can potentially help investigators identify witnesses, locations, and movements. But it does not automatically become courtroom evidence simply because thousands of people have seen it. And this is especially important now because Nolan's family has taken formal steps to obtain digital evidence. Court records show that the family's legal team sought information from Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, WhatsApp, and Life360, including communications, photographs, videos, and location information connected to Nolan's accounts and devices. Think about what that means. Instead of relying only on screenshots somebody posts online, investigators and the family can potentially seek records directly from the companies that actually stored the information. That could be far more important than a viral TikTok video, because an original platform record may contain information that a screenshot does not. A message may have a date. A photograph may have metadata. A location record may establish where a device was. A deleted post may potentially leave records behind. And Nolan's phone itself has become one of the central unresolved pieces of this case. His phone returned to the mainland with his friends while Nolan did not. His mother later discovered that the phone did not contain the collection of July 4 photographs and videos the family expected to find. But even that fact has to be handled carefully. Missing information from a phone does not automatically prove somebody deleted evidence. People delete things. Phones malfunction. Applications remove or expire content. Accounts can be cleared for ordinary reasons. The only way to know whether something significant was removed, when it was removed, and who removed it is through forensic examination. And as of the latest reporting, that examination has been caught in a dispute over how the phone should be turned over and analyzed. The family says it is ready for a joint forensic review, while the district attorney's office has sought custody of the device. So the phone may eventually tell investigators much more than any TikTok video can. And then, there is the autopsy. This is another place where the internet has filled in blanks that the official record has not. The family's independent pathologist, Dr. Roger Mitchell, could not determine Nolan's cause or manner of death. His preliminary findings did not establish a definitive cause, and foul play could not be ruled out. At the same time, the report had limitations, including the condition of the body and the fact that certain internal structures had been retained during the original examination. That does not prove homicide. It also does not prove drowning. It means the cause remains undetermined. And that distinction is absolutely critical. So if this TikTok user has truly uncovered something new, the question for viewers should not simply be, does this look suspicious? The better question is, can this claim be independently verified? Because Nolan's family deserves answers based on evidence that can withstand scrutiny, not another internet theory that disappears when the next video comes along. And there is still one part of this case that every credible piece of evidence keeps leading us back to, that 90-minute gap. Nolan was alive around 3 p.m. The boat left at 4:31. He was not aboard. Somebody knows what happened during that period. The investigation now has to determine who knows what, which accounts can be verified, what the digital records show, and whether the physical evidence can finally explain how an 18-year-old went from a crowded holiday beach to being found dead in the water 2 days later. And if the new TikTok claim is real, that evidence should be able to survive exactly that kind of scrutiny. That is where we pick up next. The TikTok claim becomes more interesting when we compare it with evidence that was already being examined outside social media. Because there is a difference between someone discovering a detail online and that detail actually changing the official timeline. And right now, one of the most important developments is a newly compiled report that brings together photographs, videos, GPS information, and witness accounts from July 4th. The report does not present itself as an official law enforcement finding. It specifically warns that some of the material has not been independently verified. But it does something important. It puts the disputed pieces of the timeline next to one another. And when you do that, the same problem keeps appearing. There is a gap between Nolan's last independently corroborated sighting and the departure of the boat. A newly released 22-page analysis by the United Cajun Navy described that gap as a material issue that still needs to be explained. The report gathered photographs, social media material, GPS information, and witness accounts, while cautioning that the material should not be treated as verified police findings. That distinction matters, because a photograph can tell us where someone appears to be. GPS can tell us where a vessel or device was recorded. A witness can tell investigators what they remember. But none of those pieces automatically answers every question surrounding what happened to Nolan. Now consider the photographs that have attracted so much attention. One newly surfaced video reportedly shows the boat connected to the case on Horn Island at approximately 11:17 in the morning, before the island became crowded for the holiday. Another video, reported as being recorded at approximately 2:23 p.m., appears to show a person wearing swim trunks similar in color to the ones Nolan was last photographed wearing. That has led some people online to believe the footage may show Nolan during the critical period before he disappeared. But appears to show is not the same thing as identification. That is an important distinction when a person's life and reputation are involved. The newer Horn Island footage has been reported as raising questions, but the publicly available reporting does not establish that the person seen in the footage is definitively Nolan. And that takes us back to the TikTok account. If the creator is saying the footage proves something darker happened, the evidence has to answer several questions. Who originally recorded the video? Was the original file preserved? Can the metadata be independently examined? Was the footage edited before it was posted? Can the people, boats, and locations in the footage be positively identified? And most importantly, can investigators establish the exact time the recording was made? Those are not minor details. They determine whether a viral clip is evidence, a lead, or simply something that looks suspicious when removed from its original context. There is another piece of evidence that has caused even more debate. The towing call. At some point that afternoon, the boat carrying Nolan's friends experienced a mechanical problem. Dispatch audio from the call was later obtained, and the recording has become one of the most heavily discussed pieces of material in the case. People online have listened to the background audio and claimed they can hear particular words and names. Some have interpreted those sounds as evidence that people on the boat were discussing Nolan. Others hear something very different. The publicly available material does establish that the boat had a mechanical emergency and needed assistance. What it does not establish, simply from people listening to an enhanced recording online, is that a hidden conversation about Nolan's death can be heard clearly in the background. That is exactly why forensic audio analysis matters. If a TikTok creator enhances a recording, that may make certain sounds easier for a human ear to notice. But enhancement does not create a transcript. It does not prove that an uncertain sound is a particular person's voice. And it certainly does not establish what the speaker meant. That is where social media can become dangerous. Once one person captions a sound with a particular sentence, thousands of other people may listen to the same recording expecting to hear those exact words. Suddenly, an interpretation begins to feel like a fact. But the investigation has to work in the opposite direction. It starts with the original recording. Then experts determine what can actually be heard. Then investigators compare the sound with other evidence. And only after that can the recording potentially become meaningful evidence. There is another reason this matters. The people who were on Horn Island that afternoon have already become the subject of intense public attention. Some have faced threats and harassment. 3 people have been federally charged in connection with threats against individuals connected to the investigation, including a judge, a witness, and local officials. None of those threat charges are charges related to Nolan's death. That distinction needs to stay clear. Someone being mentioned online is not the same as that person being accused by investigators. And someone being investigated or questioned does not mean they committed a crime. At this point, no individual has been publicly charged in connection with Nolan Wells' death. The investigation remains active, but the questions from Nolan's family have not gone away. One of their concerns involves his phone. The family has questioned whether messages, photographs, or other information were missing from the device after Nolan's death. Rather than relying solely on screenshots or social media posts, the family has taken legal steps to obtain information directly from technology companies. Subpoenas sought records from Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat, TikTok, and Life360. That could eventually provide something social media speculation cannot. A record created by the platform itself. The family's legal team is seeking information that could potentially establish communications, photographs, videos, and location data connected to Nolan's accounts and devices. Imagine what investigators could learn if those records establish a reliable sequence. A message sent at a particular time. A photograph created at a particular location. A location record showing where a phone was. A communication between people shortly before or after Nolan disappeared. None of that would automatically solve the case, but it could either support or contradict the accounts investigators already have. And that is why the phone may become one of the most important pieces of evidence still available. There is also the question of the autopsy. The independent examination did not produce the answer Nolan's parents were hoping for. Forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell concluded that the cause of death remained undetermined. The condition of the remains limited what could be established, and the available findings did not provide a definitive explanation for how Nolan died. That means we have to be very careful with another claim that appears repeatedly online. People sometimes say the autopsy proved foul play. It did not. Other people say it proved drowning. It did not definitively establish that either. The available findings leave the cause of death unresolved. And that uncertainty is precisely why every new piece of evidence is receiving so much attention. The state autopsy has been completed, but the report has not been publicly released. The district attorney's office has said it will remain withheld while the case proceeds toward grand jury review. So right now, the public is being asked to understand a case where some of the most important evidence is still not public. That creates an information vacuum. And when there is an information vacuum, social media fills it very quickly. That is what makes the TikTok claim worth examining, but not automatically believing. If the creator has uncovered an original piece of evidence, the next step should be verification. If the material can be authenticated, it could become important. If it cannot, then it remains a theory. And there is a larger question sitting behind all of this. Why was Nolan still on Horn Island when the boat left? According to Warren Hudson's account, Nolan chose to stay behind and said he would find another ride. According to accounts attributed to Katie McCormack, Nolan intended to return to his friends. Those statements do not necessarily prove that anyone is lying. They could reflect different observations of the same afternoon. But they do leave investigators with something they still have to establish. What exactly happened between the last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure? And then there is the most painful part for Nolan's family. He was only 18. He was preparing for college football. He had a family waiting for him at home. His mother expected him to return from a holiday outing. Instead, she received a call in the middle of the night telling her that something was wrong. By the morning of July 6, Nolan's body had been found near Horn Island. His family is now asking investigators to reconstruct the final hours of his life with evidence that can stand up to scrutiny. And that is where we should leave the TikTok theory for now. Not dismissed, not accepted, tested. Because if the creator really has uncovered something darker, the evidence should be strong enough to survive questions about timestamps, original files, witnesses, and independent verification. And if it does, then it could change the way investigators understand those final 90 minutes. But if it cannot, then it is another piece of internet speculation competing for attention in a case where Nolan's family needs facts. So I want to ask you this. After looking at the timeline, the disputed videos, the phone records, the boat's movements, and the conflicting accounts, what do you think deserves the most attention right now? The new TikTok evidence, the missing 90-minute window, or the information investigators may eventually recover from Nolan's phone? Tell me what you think in the comments, but keep it respectful. Nolan's family is still waiting for answers, and the people connected to this case deserve the truth to be established by evidence. And if you want to follow this investigation as new verified developments emerge, make sure you're subscribed.